Hi folks, welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm doing lesson 3 in the Watercolour Trip to Italy book, and today we are drawing a lamp in Venice. And this one I'm a little bit nervous about because I've heard it's a bit tricky, but we've got 2 attempts, and as before I am going to start off on the one nearest to the ring binder here, and then I'm going to complete this one afterwards, hopefully with some improvements. And then if I want to, it's serrated so I can cut it off and put it in a frame or put it somewhere nice. So I'm going to start off, as I have before, by putting some washi tape on this side just to keep some nice clean edges and keep it all separate so it doesn't run into the second picture. So I am going to just have a look at this. This is the reference picture which you've got to work from. And these are the steps that the author has put out for us to follow so that we can try and achieve something that looks like their final piece here. So yeah, let's give it a go. I am today using a slightly different palette because if you watch my last video you'll realise that this one is the one that came with the pack and got really quite stained, even though you can wash it off. And it just makes mixing colours and things a bit tricky because you can't actually see what colour you're mixing with all that going on underneath. So we're still going to be using the same paints and paintbrushes, but I am going to be testing out my porcelain palette, which I showed in my latest art haul video. So let's see how that goes. The 2 paintbrushes I'm using are the ones that came in the kit, a size 6 and a size 1. And I am going to start off with a size 6, I think, because the first step says to wash the background with gradation. So the top is CY and CR, so we've got cadmium yellow and cadmium red. So let's mix up some of those. I'm guessing it's going to be like the wet on wet technique. So I'm just going to wet this a bit first, I think. And something I've noticed about these paintings that I probably wouldn't have done is that they go over the whole of the lamppost, and I guess that is darker. It's not like there's white spaces that you have to leave, but normally my instinct would just be to go round that, so it's really different to how I would normally paint. Now then, it says the top bit to do those colours, and while it's still wet I'm going to try and go on to the middle bit where it says middle is cadmium yellow still with more cadmium red. So I'm going to add into my mix a little bit more of that red, and actually it's probably more red down this side. And then it says at the bottom a bit of CM, which is Madder Lake Deep. So I'm going to add in a little bit of that to the mix I've already made. The only thing with a lot of water is that you can get puddles, and this isn't completely flat because it's in this book, so I have to make sure that I don't get puddles of water kind of sitting on it like that. That would dry odd. It says dry, so I'm going to put the hairdryer on this, and hopefully that will stop any of the pools as well, and then we'll come back and do step 2. So that bit is all dry, and I think it's dried quite nicely. It's not completely flat, but I'm quite pleased with how the colours came out. And we're on to step 2 then, that says wash the cathedral on the background, and this is with Watercolour, so that's mixing these colours all together. And we've got ultramarine, Madder Lake Deep, Viridian and yellow ochre, and again it's using a lot of water for the 3 droplets there. It doesn't give us the proportions again, so I'm going to have to try and just guess. That's the colour we've got, mixing those 4 colours together. Perhaps we'll drop in some of those other colours in with it whilst it's still wet to get the variation. And I think if I was doing this by myself I'd probably get a bit bogged down by doing all the details and the windows and things and going around the windows or what have you. So doing this painting book is really, it does simplify it a lot compared to, my brain tends to complicate things automatically and think that I've got to do every window and every single little detail, which is probably why I don't do landscapes and things so much. So I don't know if I've got enough water to be able to drop some colours in. Let's try dropping in some bits and pieces. What other colours did it say? Ultramarine. Let's drop a bit of that in because, oh my goodness, scary. Okay, that's fine. Meant to do that. It'll dry later. Happy accident, say. Maybe it'll look okay. I think theirs looks a bit more purpley though. Look, and they go over the lamppost there as well, you can tell. Okay, and then it says, wash glasses of lamp with yellow ochre and Madder Lake Deep. Let's do it. I might have to switch up to the smaller brush, I think. It's a bit easier to work with. I think I'm getting used to this brush a bit better, or this brand of brush. I found it a bit soft to start with compared to what I was used to, but I suppose after practicing with it and using it a few times you get a bit more used to it. Wash lamppost, again Watercolour, so that's kind of mixing up the colours maybe as you go rather than in one big chunk. Let's try that this time. So we've got ultramarine, Madder Lake Deep, Viridian and yellow ochre. So the three colours there that those are just mixed together. 3 or 4? 4 are those colours, which looks a bit muddy, but kind of does look a bit like that. So I might drop some more Viridian in as we go. It doesn't say how much water that's, so I don't want to go too much. So it says lamppost. Does that mean the top of it as well? I think I'm going to do the top of it because in that picture it does show that all of this has been done at this stage. Although it says wash the top of the lamps. No, okay. I'm going to go and use that colour for all of it, I think, because to me that looks very similar to that. One of the next steps is wash the top of the lamp. I'm guessing that might mean this bit and not this bit. So I'm going to do this bit with the lamppost itself. See on theirs, I can see they've actually mixed the colours on the paper and I kind of mixed it in the palette, so maybe that's something that I need to remember for next time, because you can see a variation there. There's a difference between these where they've just kind of dropped the colours in while it's wet, so that's something that perhaps I need to do next time because I didn't do it this time. Mine, I just did all the same colour. So yeah, try and remember that for next time. Okay, so the next bit is to wash the tops of the lamp with violet, viridian and yellow ochre. So I'm guessing now we're talking about these bits, which we didn't do when we did the rest of the lamppost. Okay, so that's quite nice actually. I didn't think it would turn out like that because I thought it would be a lot more violet, but it looks okay. So we are already on to step 3, which says darken inner part of lamps with burnt umber and Madder Lake Deep. Inner part of lamps. I think sometimes I get a bit confused about which bit they mean. So inner part of lamps, okay. Let's mix the colour and perhaps that will give us a bit of a clue. That's like that colour. Maybe that's this bit. No, that's the glass. Maybe the lamp is the bit on the top there. Inner part of lamps. Maybe it's this bit and this bit. Let's try that. But then it said add accents on the lamps. Inner parts of lamps and accents. I don't know. Confused. I think I'm going to do this shaded bit with this colour. Inner part of lamps. So I'm going to do a bit of shading and we'll see. Or we can do it differently on the next one. Maybe all will become clear later on. I don't know, maybe that is right. But this one looks completely... What about the actual picture? See, on the actual photograph, I'm not actually seeing where they're getting that from, but there we go. And then we'll add accents on the lamps with burnt umber and violet. Could be completely wrong. If you've tried this painting book before, and you've tried this one, I know somebody, one of you who has got this painting book said this one was a bit tricky. Maybe it's not actually the painting that is tricky, maybe it's just understanding what is what. If that's where you've struggled, then let me know in the comments, because I have found that with understanding the instructions on a couple of them actually. A couple of them, this is only the third one. So both the other ones then, there have been places where I haven't really been sure of what's what. Lost in translation maybe, I don't know. Or maybe I'm just not very up to date with the anatomy of a lamppost or a window or whatever else. Because we've also got that bit. I think I'm just going to do that. Is that right? Let's do it. And I haven't actually got a guide. If I have, I've drawn over it, so we'll just do that line down there. So we're on the step here, darken partly glasses of lamps with Madder Lake Deep, Ultramarine and Yellow Ochre. What that was, so maybe, okay, we've done it a bit dark. Never mind. I think I'm just going to lift a bit of that up, maybe that will help. With whatever colour we used, that was that stage, wasn't it? Inner parts of lamps. I don't know. The only thing is, how am I going to know next time what to do differently if it's just a case of understanding the instructions? I'm just going to use this to lift actually, because theirs is a lot lighter there, and the reference picture does look darker than the background, but I don't think it looks as dark as my version of it. So perhaps I'm just going to try and lift, get some of that brightness back. I think it's better. Look, that bit could do with being a bit lighter. The next bit, so where it says dark and partly glasses of lamps, I've actually lifted to lighten because I think I did this bit wrong. So now we're going to move on to the cathedral again, and it says add details to the cathedral on the background. So we've got windows, sculptures, etc. in the Watercolour, using the Watercolour technique with these three colours. So rather than mixing them all up into one colour, I'm going to try and apply them separately to get that variety of colour. So we're going to look at their version. There is, so it's all these little bits together, yellow ochre, ultramarine and Marigold deep, using the Watercolour technique. This is where I come unstuck a bit, because as I said, my tendency is to do everything kind of really accurately and detailed, and I feel like with this book it's all very kind of loose and I don't know, it looks okay when they do it, but I just don't feel that I'm very natural at that style of painting, at least yet. I don't know, maybe I'll get better at it and loosen up, but I've always struggled with loosening up with things because I just think it looks like if you do it too loose, you're not actually, unless you do it confident, maybe it's a confidence thing. If you do it too loose, you just look like you haven't done it properly or that you're not very good, or that you don't know what you're doing. But maybe with confidence and being bold and courageous, it looks like you know what you're doing. And yeah, I've still got a way to go with that, I think. Okay, so that one I think kind of looks a bit like that. But this one looks maybe a little bit more bluer or purpley. So I'm going to add in ultramarine and Marigold deep. So let's try that. Ultramarine. Trying to let them mix together on the paper in that Watercolour style rather than mixing them separately. Step, it says, oh no, nearly last one, it says add dark wood stocks on the middle ground. So I'm guessing that these are these sticky things with burnt umber and viridian. So that I can do. But also I don't think I've done this bit. Was that on anything? The inner part of lamps. Oh, I don't know. Got a bit muddled up with that bit. Blur partly the edge of the cathedral. So first of all, we've got to add these dark wood stocks, which is burnt umber and viridian. This book is quite long, isn't it? It's quite hard to keep it in frame. So I apologise if there's bits of it that keep going out of frame. Kind of looking, trying to remember to look at both the photograph and their reference picture. So they've got a few bits. Not an awful lot, but just a little suggestion suggestion, I think. And it doesn't help that I haven't painted right to the bottom, but never mind. I think that'll do. Now the last step of this one, it says to blur partly edges of the cathedral. What edges? I think I can see a bit of blurring there. My only thinking with blurring is that to do that you need to add water, and if I add too much water I'm going to get blooms and things around here. So they don't appear to have many blurred edges actually. So perhaps I'll just do a little suggestion of it, because also looking at the reference picture, it's not really blurry, so perhaps I'll just do a bit of a suggestion of blurring, just so that we can say we've done that step. Okay, I'm just going to add a bit of water on my brush, and I think this lamppost, I seem to, anyway, right, distracted. Let's just put a little bit of blurring there and see if, yeah, see, it's just gonna, a bit of a bloomy thing around there, as expected. So I'm not going to go and do an awful lot of that. You see, because I don't really want it looking cauliflowery and whatnot. So that is all of it finished. We've done all of the steps, but I think next time I can improve on certainly this step 3. I might have to have a think before I do it and work out which bit is what. I think there's certainly bits that I missed out. I can see certainly on the lamppost itself, and I think where I lightened instead of darkened on the actual glass bit there, I must have got something in the wrong place. But anyhow, so far as this one is concerned, I think it looks okay, but I did like the background. That I think went well. The lampposts, not so sure. Perhaps from a distance it looks okay, and perhaps if we compare it to looking at the actual reference picture, it looks okay. But yeah, so let's let that dry and we'll have another go, and I'll put it into a time lapse so you don't have to go through each of those steps again, and then we can look at them together at the end to see what we've learnt and what we liked and what we didn't. So there we have the two attempts side by side, and looking at them together, I think the second attempt on the left looks more similar to the photo reference with the more subtle red-orange background colours. And although it's difficult to see here, the sky on the first attempt looks closer to that of the artist's impression with a lighter, brighter background where my paint mix leaned more towards yellow than orange. Overall, I wasn't really happy with the way I painted the buildings in either attempt, and I think that's because of the lack of detail, which, although it looks good in the artist's painting, just ends up looking amateurish in mine. I think if I were painting this scene without the artist's guidance, I would definitely have gone darker with the buildings, but maybe in doing so I wouldn't have such an interesting arrangement and variety of colours. I do feel though that by making the buildings lighter in value, your eye is automatically drawn to them more than if they were darker, which would make me want to ensure they had a bit more form and detail. But loosening up my painting is the very thing I'm trying to learn with this painting book, so maybe I just need to keep practicing. So far as the lamppost was concerned, well, what can I say? I did get very confused by the instructions first time round, as you saw, and as I expected, the instructions didn't make any more sense to me the second time round. But then I felt a bit more confident and painted more instinctively than before, laying down colour by using the picture references as opposed to the written guidance. I did still use the colour mixing guide though, as regardless of how the instructions were written or how my attempts turned out, I still think there are valuable lessons to be learned from those. So far as techniques used in this painting, I really enjoyed painting the gradation for the background. It's not super easy in this book though, as the paper not being taped down does have a tendency to curl up when lots of water is added. I do think it turned out okay though. Another technique I used today was the Watercolour technique, which I had better results with on my second attempt, but I did find it a bit tricky as the paper kept drying before I could drop other colours in. I do like the look this achieves though, so we'll look forward to trying this again soon. Lastly today was the blur technique, which I didn't have much success with, mainly because I was worried about the dreaded cauliflower blooms. In fact, I avoided using this technique altogether in the second painting as I didn't want to spoil my background. If anyone has any helpful advice on how to create a blur technique over dry paint without getting blooms and without having to re-wet your entire painting, then please let me know in the comments. Also let me know which attempt you prefer and why, as I'd love to hear your thoughts. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, where I post twice weekly videos on all things art related. Hit the bell icon too if you'd like to be notified each time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching, have a great weekend, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!